You show me what you got. I'll tell you where to put it.
I'm pulling them right now because it feels good.
Oh, I mean, Finnan really is a fucking babe. I mean, the accent. Welcome back, Pot Coven. We are continuing this block of episodes talking about spiritual growth and different tools that we can use for our spiritual journey. We're going to dive into some astrology because we love astrology here. We know everyone loves astrology. So let's do a little deep dive into one aspect. So you might have heard of aspects before. It's usually where people start to go like, oh, no, that's too much for me. I can't understand that. Aspects are basically the relationship between placements. And so there are two kinds of aspects, natal aspects and transit aspects. Natal aspects are within ourselves, within our charts. So for instance, we're going to talk about our natal aspects. One of mine is Pluto square my ascendant. So my natal Pluto, the one in my chart, is creating a square with my ascendant. We'll dive into that more so, but transits are the relationship between you, the planets in your chart, in your life, in your body, and the planets in the sky, okay? So we're going to specifically talk about squares today because squares bring us a lot of growth because they have to do with challenges. They're called a square because a square is when two planets or placements are 90 degrees apart. And if you're looking at a circle chart and you have 4 squares and 4 different signs and you draw a line between them, they each have these 90-degree angles. What does that make? A square. So it's easy to see on a chart. You might hear 90 and think like, how does that make a square? That sounds like a triangle. But no, it's just one corner of the square. So natal squares are the relationships between the planets in your natal chart. In the book by Joanne Martine Woolfolk, wow, it sounded like I said her last name was fuck. Whoops. Joanne Martine Woolfolk, in her book, The Only Astrology Book You'll Ever Need, which, by the way, if you want to be an astrology whiz like us, that is the #1 book I recommend. She says that squares can be challenging and stressful. A square places obstacles and teaches lessons. This aspect usually indicates an area where the person can develop drive and strength of character by overcoming difficulties. So transits are when the planets in the cosmos interact with the planets in us/our charts. Same. So Bernadette, I can't say names today, Bernadette Brady in her book, Predictive Astrology, says that transit squares are events which are nobody's fault, forcing you into new types of action. So it's like when something happens in your life and it really didn't have to do with, you and something you did, but it is this pressure cooker that forces you to do something differently. So to summarize, if that was all over your head, squares force us to change and learn lessons and face challenges. So they are tough. They're not an easy aspect, but when we work with them, when we learn to understand them, we gain spiritual, personal growth. So boom, there you go. That's a square. Mic drop. So I have 2 squares in my natal chart. How many do you guys have?
So I have Pluto square my ascendant, and then I have Pluto square my moon, Venus, Mars, Jupiter. So
that sounds like a lot.
You do the math.
It's a lot of Pluto squares. It's like,
I don't like math,
yeah.
By the way.
So I will not do it.
No. Sorry.
No thanks
So
to that.
I have 6 of them because I already did the math that I hated.
Yeah, I think mine's technically like 5.
Okay.
If you're counting each one.
If we're counting.
Which I asked you to, so we are. Okay, who wants to share one first? I only have 2, so why don't one of you guys go first?
I want to know about Ella.
I bet you do.
But
Tell me your dirty little secret.
your Pluto square your ascendant, because we share that one, and that's one of my two.
Okay.
Please and
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Okay, so my Pluto is in Scorpio. It's also in my ninth house, and it is square my, like I said, Moon, Venus, Mars, Jupiter in Leo in the sixth house. I do move a lot. Just thinking about nine being like, travel and philosophy and all that, and sixth house being like the home. So I do move a lot. Um, I don't really have any sexual hangups per se. That would be the other thing I would think of, especially with so much Leo. Maybe that's the square, is that I'm too open about it and it freaks people out. I don't know. It doesn't feel challenging, I guess, but I don't know.
Maybe you've already overcome it.
I
Right.
don't know. Yeah.
I found when looking at mine that I was like, oh, okay, like this one I know, this one I understand. Yeah, I've worked through that one. And then the other one I was like, ooh, I don't know if I've really looked at this aspect yet. Because like I found in doing, a more in-depth research of each of mine, I was like, oh, this one isn't really ringing true. This doesn't sound like me. And I'm like, ooh, babe, that probably means that you are avoiding something. You have not looked at this lesson yet.
Yeah.
Not saying that's true for you, but that's just what I found.
Sit with that for a
Well,
minute.
I mean, like, in high school, I definitely got pegged as, like, you know, like slutty, even though I really didn't sleep with that many people, and most of the people I slept with I was dating. So it could be a perception thing too, or maybe overcoming that perception. You know what, though? Like, as far as, because I see Pluto as kind of like a long-term planet as well.
Right.
And I do definitely have a challenge of burnout. So I could definitely see that with like my Mars. Um, Actually, you know what? Yeah, okay. Okay. I see a little bit here too. Okay, so with my moon, okay, wait. Let me just slow down, Gemini. Hold on. Don't skip through everything. We're going to start with Mars because that's where I was. Okay. All right. So, Pluto square my Mars. I feel like I have trouble just like making a decision and then doing it. Like I spend so much time on the fence trying to be like, oh, which way is best? Which way is best? And like sometimes the best thing is just fucking choose. Just go somewhere. Just fucking step on the gas. Um, Pluto square my moon. I feel like sometimes I can get trapped in like those little mental cycles with myself, especially around PMS time. I have some pretty intense PMS mood swings, that's for sure. But yeah, kind of hard to like, I don't know, transform my emotions from what they are and figuring out what they want to be, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, I could see a little bit of struggle maybe right there.
I feel like Mars square Pluto is like really intense. I feel like, are you competitive?
Yeah.
Sexually
Maybe.
intense, competitive, like
Yep,
super
yep.
driven, I would say. Like when you set your sights on something, it's like it can be maybe all consuming.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that a lot of the planets in Leo square the Pluto and Scorpio shows up as like really in your face, really
Right.
intense, like in one way or another, you know? Like I I have gone to like a job interview and someone called me like aggressive. Like literally he was like, "Oh, I can see you're very aggressive trying to get this job." I'm like, "Did you just say aggressive? You think I'm aggressive? Like what the fuck?" I'd never been called that in my life. It was super weird. But yeah, I've had some pretty like strong wording as far as like the way that I am, just I'm just fucking boom out there in your face. Jugs out, bitches, or something like
Jugs
that.
out, bitches. Hell yeah.
Jugs out, bitches.
New
Yeah,
tagline.
so I'm intense. I
Yeah.
think that's what that all boils down to. I'm fucking intense.
Yeah, it's definitely a certain intensity, especially with sex and romance. I see that.
Mm, yes.
Because of both the Mars and the Venus, there's a sexual
Yeah.
intensity there and perhaps even a sexual darkness there.
Ooh, you don't even know? Yeah, actually, people always comment because me and my husband are like, I mean, we're both air signs, so we are naturally like, we love to flirt with all humans. I mean, honestly, like, we just love to flirt with life. We flirt with trees, you know what I mean? Like, we're fucking flirters all the way. Um, so I can definitely see, even in my current relationship, like, we will be hanging out with our friends and we make people feel awkward because we're just so, like, open about like these random weird things, or like we'll just fucking riff off each other and make shit up, be like, yeah, I'm gonna stick it in his butt later, and he's like, oh yeah, I love it, like, but you know, he doesn't, and we don't do that, but we'll just make these like really intense inappropriate jokes, and people are like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys, you're weird, and we're like, woo, air signs. But
I
yes,
love it.
I like to be in your face, and like, I mean, you know, the other day my daughter goes, Mom, what's that red thing on the dog? I'm like, that's his penis, honey. And my friend was just like, holy shit, like, did you just think penis? I was like, yeah, that's what it is.
You might as
That's
well know
its
what one
name.
is.
I don't know. What do you want me to call it? I don't want any my kids to be using cutesy names for private parts. Like, just, it's an organ. You wouldn't call your arm a reachity floppity or something, you know? Just fucking call it whatever the fuck it is. Now I'm gonna call it that though.
That's um, teachable moment there. It is also very good to teach your children the proper names for their body parts because it makes them less likely to be taken advantage of bisexual predators. And then
Yeah,
if they
that's
are taken advantage of, they're able to tell you that they were. Or tell a
exactly.
teacher or somebody, because if a teacher comes up to your kid and they're like, "Oh, my uncle was touching my nuna," or I don't fucking know, I don't use these
My
words.
donut.
Yeah, and we're like, okay, well maybe your uncle shouldn't touch your donut. I'm sorry, tell him no next time. But they have
Yep.
no idea that they're coming to them, telling them that they're being
Yeah.
abused. So
Yep.
It
Yep.
also helps in adulthood, you know, even if you are not inappropriately touched as a child, it's like, I just feel like it's weird when you like grow up just calling your vagina susu, and then it's like vagina becomes a weird word and you're like, no, it's normal. It's what you have. Like, also
Mhm.
learn the word vulva and whatnot. I just think there's a lot of shame around sex in general. And so the more
Mhm.
we could just be like, nope,
mhm.
this is normal, natural stuff, early on in
Mhm.
life, the better it is. But, you know, I don't have my own kids. I just worked with them. So, of course, I could not implement that to one teaching moment.
Yeah. But I definitely was like an awkward child because I would ask like sex and death questions very openly, like of my church leaders and shit, and they're just like, please no. Please no. Just stop asking these questions. I was like 4 or 5 when I asked my dad what sex was, and he was like, I want to throw up. I need to get out of here. I'm like, I'm so sorry. When I was in high school, I asked him who Ron Jeremy was, and he almost crashed the car. It's because of that fucking Sublime song. It's not like I had never seen Ron Jeremy at that point. I won't say I hadn't watched porn, but I had not seen Ron Jeremy at that point. I didn't know who he was.
How old were you when you stopped born?
Probably like 12 or 13.
Jess?
I was probably like 18 before I ever like saw most of anything of that.
Well,
Okay.
mine
And
was
it was a
also in
lesbian.
print magazines, so that's a little different.
Nice.
Yeah, for sure.
I think I was 11. You know, we went on sites in my friend Laura's garage. Sorry for throwing you under the bus there, Laura. I remember one time, you
Sorry,
know, like
Laura's parents.
yeah, her dad was a little computer dork. He was so adorable. But so we had like all these computers in the garage, and so one time me and her and I think some of our other friends were like, all right, actually we did this multiple times, I'm not gonna lie. But one time grandma was walking in and we were like frantically trying to close all the tabs, you know, but like hella pop-ups were popping up and we just had to like turn the like whole desktop screen off and be like, we weren't looking at giant boobs on the internet.
See, I kind of got more into like chat rooms. So that's
Mm,
how I discovered things about sex. I never watched anything.
mm. I watched
Or my
porn quite early.
my parents would do like their like pure romance is big today, whatever the thing was back then, with
Uh-huh.
all their like sex toys and sex lubricating
Right.
enhancers, and I would find that stuff in my mom's drawer when I was quite young, and like, what the hell is this? That looks like candy.
Haha, yep.
That must be fun.
My parents definitely never kept sex like a secret from me. They didn't tell me like too much. They didn't go overboard, but I always knew what sex was. So like, I don't know. I guess I was just curious as a kid, and I had other friends that were curious, so we would browse. Always ladies. I think
The
it's
word
part of the
sex.
exploration too, is just like
Uh-huh.
seeing an adult female's body as you're, prepubescent.
Oh,
It's like, okay.
Titanic.
Oh yeah.
Thanks, Kate.
Thanks for your bod.
Yeah.
Okay, I
The
want to
word
hear
sex
about.
still makes my dad go like cringe. It's so funny.
Oh,
They're from
you're
that
so lucky,
generation
man.
where
Right.
sex is like, don't talk about it. It makes you a whore just to say the word sex.
And my
Something
partner
like that.
doesn't know how to actually please me because we
And
won't
I
talk
can't
about it.
ask for it.
Yes. We just turn the lights off, we go under the covers, we close our eyes, and we cry while inside each other.
Lie
Anyway.
back and think of England.
Jess, I want to hear.
Good. Sounds like pretty good therapy, to be honest.
It could be
Crying
worse.
while talking. I don't know. Energy transmuting, if we do it right, I guess. Anywho, all right. So I have a Leo moon in the ninth house, square my Mercury and Taurus in the fifth house, and brings up like a lot of conflict between the head and the heart. I can go like pretty quickly from emotional, illogical thought to like immediately having complete logical thinking, and that's pretty accurate even to this day. It's kind of a hard thing to really find that balance between how you think and how you feel,
Mm,
especially when you've had like childhood traumas and things like that.
right.
So, but this combination for myself leads away to like wit storytelling, and I've always been prone to poetry. I think that's a
I
funny
like that.
fucking way to say that.
It's a poetic way of saying it.
I have kind of an imaginative sense of humor and prone to like satire. When I was growing up, that was like my number one satire because it would always catch, especially young guys, off guard that a girl was saying this kind of stuff. And I think that's like the main reason why I even dated in high school because they're like, oh, she's kind of funny. And then they're like, oh, she's kind of really weird. um, so if I was more talkative, you could probably easily read my mood from that because I wear it on my sleeve. Um, I'm prone to hypersensitivity because I'm a bit of subjective, but I do believe that's a lot to do with like the way I observe reality and the experiences that I've had in life. Um, I take in a lot from my environment. Like overload is a saying it lightly.
Yeah, you definitely like system overload. Like when you process stuff, sometimes you can just see it like, but it's too much. I need to
Yeah.
sit and think about it first before I comment.
How do we condense this all into one thing? Because
Yeah.
it's like the Big Bang and everything blew off into a million bajillion pieces, and I'm like, okay, well, I just got to catch some of them so I can make sense of it all to somebody else.
Yeah.
But that leads to a lot of indecision because I can see why we would do something even though that might not necessarily be what I would want to do. So then I'm like, oh, well, I can't actually make that decision. Let's wait until someone else has a more passionate response to this than me because I'm very neutral. Which kind of it leads for like an interesting companionship when we become friends or lovers or whatnot. Usually charming, I would say, not to toot my own horn, but I do have a
Toot it.
tendency toot toot. I have a tendency to misrepresent myself with the things that I say. But again, I think that's because I pull from so many different angles that it's like really hard for someone else to pinpoint that it's only coming from like a one-sided perspective. That's my thought on it. I'm happiest in an imaginary world of my own making. So it is and has been fairly difficult to find like the ideal world outside of myself. So it can lead to like massive amounts of change and what appears to be instability to the outside world, but it's really, that's just my norm. I'm constantly going through change. That's why I called myself the transformation witch for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
quick side note is that I think, right, so far, like all of the squares we've talked about, and including mine that I haven't talked about yet, they're all fixed signs. Like we all have fixed sign stuff. Like your LO is Scorpio, Leo stuff, and you're talking about Leo and Taurus right now, right?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, and mine's gonna be Scorpio, Aquarius stuff. We're a bunch of fixed signs in here. Anyway, just noticed that. So
a fun note about that placement for myself is that Oscar Wilde also has a moon square Mercury, and I have one of my favorite tattoos has script from a quote of his that I would like to read if you're willing to listen. Yes, death must be so beautiful to lie in the soft brown earth with the grasses waving above one's head and listen to the silence, to have no yesterday and no tomorrow, to forget time, to forget life, to be at peace. You can help me, you can open for me the portals of death's house, for love is always with you and love is stronger than death is.
That's a pretty Scorpio sounding quote.
No doubt. I need to look the rest of his chart.
I was gonna say I'll do it right now. You can keep talking.
I have some pretty heavy Scorpio placements as well. So
Oscar Wilde is a Libra sun in the second house, a Virgo rising, and a Leo moon in the 11th house. A boom, boom, boom. Leo, Virgo, Libra. That's him. Where's his Mercury? He's got a Scorpio Mercury in the 3rd.
No fucking doubt. That makes so much sense.
And a Gemini midheaven, which makes sense for how prolific he was. And a Taurus. He's got a lot. There's a whole lot of aspects. It's I think a splat chart because he is in a lot of houses. We have the 11th house, the 2nd house, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, the 8th, and 9th and 10th. Yeah, there's very few houses that he doesn't have something in. The 1st, the 12th. Is that it? And the 7th.
We have very similar charts as far as the layout.
Interesting.
I'm going to be a novelist before I die.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. It's a good takeaway from that.
This Power of 3 episode has been brought to you by Tonic Vibes CBD products. Tonic's original CBD blends are handcrafted in small batches with purposeful plant-based ingredients. Using herbs like ashwagandha and superfoods like black seed oil, Tonic elevates the benefits of CBD to create a powerful way to heal the body, calm the mind, and restore balance. Their hemp-derived CBD and botanical blends create a completely holistic method to help you feel your best and #FixYourVibe. Use code WITCHY at tonicvibes.com for 10% off your order.
This episode of the Power of 3 podcast is brought to you by Shock Rubs, because sex is magic. Shock Rubs is the first crystal sex toy company. Their sex toys are made from natural crystals that bring a sense of sacredness to your playtime. These beautiful handcrafted tools are created with the intention of opening oneself up to the healing properties that crystals provide. All toys are body safe, made from the earth, and provided with love. They create harmony in mind, body, and spirit, remove blocks caused by sexual trauma, create deeper intimacy with the self and with your partner, and even encourage self-awareness and mindfulness. So use the code WITCHYWISDOM on shockrubs.com at checkout for 10% off your purchase today.
So I only have 2 in my chart, and it's both because I have all 4 fixed signs. So I was talking about how we all have fixed signs, squares that we've been talking about thus far, and that's because your squares will be within the same mode. So there are 3 modes: cardinal, mutable, and fixed, and that is decided upon when the sign appears in a season. Cardinal begins a season, mutable ends a season, fixed is in the middle of a season. And I actually have all 4 fixed signs, but because they're at varying degrees, not all of them are like create squares with one another. So the only ones that do it are my Scorpio Pluto squares my Aquarius rising, and my Scorpio moon squares my Aquarius rising. The Scorpio Pluto one is tighter. It's only 2 degrees apart, like 2 degrees from an exact 90-degree separation, whereas it's 5 degrees separation between my Scorpio moon and Aquarius rising. Although the Scorpio moon Aquarius rising square is the one that I feel like I've worked on the most. So I will talk about that one. People with moon square their ascendant are overly sensitive and moody. They misinterpret other people's emotions and body language, which reading that one, I was like, I need to remember that. I need to work on that and recognize that, yes, I am an empath, but I also sometimes totally read into something completely incorrectly and then go on a fucking spiral about it. It's easier for me to become overwhelmed by my emotions. I try to hold my feelings in, which leads to later conflict, and I need to develop emotional security and understand my emotional reactions. So that's the thing about squares. You look at it and yeah, it's going to read you. It's going to tell you, oh, you misinterpret people's emotions and you bottle up your emotions, and that affects you later in life. And you might read these squares and what they mean for you and think like, oh, Jesus, oh, wow, I'm just doomed. But the point of a square is to understand this part of your chart, understand the challenges, and then go like, oh, okay, this is something to work on. So for me, looking at my Scorpio moon square my Aquarius rising, I feel more connected to this one. Like when I was reading about it, I was like, yeah, this is me. I am extremely moody. I like, especially having it be a Scorpio moon specifically that is squaring my ascendant. Like, I definitely hold on to my feelings. Part of that is because I'm a chewer. I'm an internal processor. And so I'd rather internally process my emotions before I articulate them to people, because that's just safer and better for me. But sometimes I also, because I misinterpret people's emotions and misinterpret their body language and read into everything way too much and have anxiety, I will create this whole false reality, which is also why I don't like to share my emotions sometimes, because I'm like, I don't know if I'm making this up. But yeah, it can definitely lead to later conflict, which I will actually talk about, because I'm going to talk about a transit that just happened, a square transit that just happened for me. So I'll share my information about that a little bit more. But let's talk, or I will talk a little bit about my Scorpio Pluto square my Aquarius rising, because this is one that I was like, oh, I don't feel super deeply connected to this one. And like I said, that's likely because I need to sit with it a little bit more and understand it a little bit more so I can understand the challenge and then utilize it for personal/spiritual growth. Which is me. I'm the self-proclaimed personal growth witch, so that's what my eyes focus on. So if you have Pluto square your ascendant, which is a fancier name perhaps for your rising sign, you're very competitive. You have a fear of being controlled by others. You're naturally probing, inquisitive, and mysterious. You have a fear of being controlled, which I already mentioned, but that leads to you sometimes controlling, manipulating, and lying to other people. Learning compromise and trust is a big lesson for people with this aspect. This aspect also suggests that someone will have a fascination with the dark aspects of life, and that will lead them to dangerous places and events and people. And that one's really fucking true. Absolutely. There is a little demon inside of me that I hear sometimes that just wants to do something just so fucking risky and just make the bad choice. And I haven't died yet, but as one of my friend's ex-boyfriends said, it only takes one time to die. So.
Well, but what if you never know that? Like, because we don't know what happens after we die. What if you die and you just like jump into the next timeline or whatever where you actually lived? So we die hundreds of times.
I know. You've brought that up before, and that comes into my mind quite often. And I think, okay, what if I actually died, when I almost got in that car accident? What if I had died in that time? How many like different timelines have I jumped into at this point in time? I don't know.
The world may never know.
The world may never know. So I definitely know that I'm competitive. I think this fear of being controlled by others is one that I want to sit with because that one doesn't like instantly resonate with me. And so I'm curious to see like how that might pop up in my life if that's something I have already worked through or I haven't worked through yet and can learn something from. Because there's definitely aspects of this square that I'm like, yeah, especially because anytime Pluto is going to be in an aspect of something, it brings like intensity and moodiness. And I'm like, well, I have a fucking Scorpio moon. So, that is going to be prevalent in my life. But yeah, the site I used, which was astrologyking.com. I love astrologyking.com for any listeners. One of my favorites for looking up transits and aspects for sure. The learning to compromise and trust is a big lesson. I think the lesson of trust is one that I've pretty much got down, trusting myself, trusting other people. I actually trust people and myself probably too much, to be honest. And learning compromise is definitely something that has come a little bit later in life because I have so many fixed sign placements. Compromise does not come super naturally to me, but that's okay. We all have lessons to learn, and squares help us learn those lessons. I didn't mention the celebrities that I share these placements with. So other celebrities, or not celebrities specifically, but famous people who have moon square their ascendant are F. Scott Fitzgerald, Charles Manson, and Michelle Pfeiffer. Other famous people who have Pluto square their ascendant are David Letterman, John Cena, Brad Pitt, and King George III. That's me. But yeah, I wanted to share a little bit about transits because we've been talking all about natal placements. So planets moving around in the sky are going to create aspects with you in your chart. That's where we get predictive astrology from. And one of the aspects they can create is a square. It generally brings uncomfortable situations and events into your life that force you to kind of do something differently, rework something. So it's a challenge, but it's like, pressure makes diamonds type of thing. And we just had a new moon in Leo. And so it was at 26 degrees and my moon in Scorpio is at 22 degrees. And so that created a square aspect between them. Now the moon moves so fast that whenever the moon makes an aspect with anything in your chart, it's going to be a more minor aspect as opposed to when transiting Pluto is making an aspect in your chart. It's going to take its sweet ass time to get that to that exact degree for the aspect. That thing is going to be hanging around for a long time. So whereas moon square moon, natal moon square transit moon, that's going to affect me for maybe a day, But the notes I took down for transit moon squaring natal moon is that disagreements at home or with family or with partners are likely to come up. You should avoid arguments, especially with people who have a lot of feminine energy and are very in touch with their emotions. Disagreements will be a challenge, and they don't bring peace and harmony. And you're also going to feel uncomfortable in groups and in public. But it's a pandemic, and California is literally on fire. So I can't breathe outside. So I haven't been outside, so I avoided that. And I definitely was gearing up to have a tense discussion with my Robert. But then when we talked, it ended up being not tense whatsoever. So, once again, doing that thing where I build something up in my mind to be one thing, and then it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be how I thought it was. So for me, it wasn't, that wasn't a huge transit, but I'm definitely always a moody, emotional bitch. So I felt it. I was feeling it.
Mind blown.
No, more like mind doesn't work.
That's how I feel this morning.
Jargon. It's so hard. Astrology is a language, it really is. And so then, like, I don't try to be exclusive with discussing astrology, but it's like I have these words that describe these things and I use them,
Mm-hmm.
It's a language. It is a language. And I'm not good. Well, actually, I love languages. What am I talking about? I have a fucking Sagittarius Mercury. My Sagittarius Mercury really comes out in the fact that, like, I love to learn how to count to 10 in, like, as many languages as I can, or just know, like, random phrases or words. Like, there's a lot of languages where, like, do you want to know how to say where's the bathroom in Japanese? Tore wa doko deseko? Or baby in Swahili? Mtoto mchanga? Or I love you in Russian. Yate balablo. I love language. Anyway, that's one of my very few mutable signs. I'm mainly fixed.
I feel like you have a very good Russian accent.
Я говорю по-русски. Что ты делаешь, сука малая? I have spent a lot of time with Russians. And if anyone speaks Russian, please don't take what I said personally.
Fair.
I said, what's up, little bitch? Because that's what your Russian friends teach you. Yeah. I can say, I speak Russian. What's up, little bitch? Fuck. And I love you. That's what I've got in Russian.
Yeah. My extent of Spanish is like food and swear words because I learned most of it in the kitchen. Nice. I took like the 2 years in high school to get like the basics, but then in my adult life, I really only used it for asking for another freaking plate of eggs or saying "get the fuck away from me" or some shit like that, So
I took German, but my favorite Spanish word is lechuga. I think that's just so fun to say.
Lechuga.
And that means let it. Yes, it means let it.
Yes, see, I know my Spanish food. I took German 1 year of high school, but then I moved, and so I couldn't keep taking it. I took it for 2 semesters of college. Fucking, my phrase that I still retain out of it is "Ich habe eine Party in meinen Hosen."
What do you have in your pants?
A party.
Nice. I took a lot of Spanish, but...
Now you need to learn how to say I'm invited or you're invited.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You're invited to a party in my pants.
I can say that in Spanish because I know the word for to invite, but in German I can't remember what to invite is. Damn verbs.
Gosh darn it, verbs. I know very little German. One of the few things I can say is der Regenbogen. And das ist sehr gut. I can count to 10, but it's really bad. Like, it's like my German accent is not comparable to my Russian accent for sure.
I taught my 7-year-old how to do 1 to 10.
Nice.
I'm much better at writing other languages than I am speaking them. How I
like reading.
Interessante. So I can text well.
Yeah, I prefer reading other languages. When it comes to Spanish, I like to read Spanish and I can maybe write back, but like actually comprehending it with my ears is challenging.
This episode of the Power Through podcast has been brought to you by BetterHelp.com. BetterHelp is an online platform with licensed therapists who are ready to help you wherever you might exist across the multiverse. Now, you must be 18 years or older to use this service, and BetterHelp is not a crisis line, but you can start communicating with someone within 24 hours. They have financial aid available to qualifying individuals. This is a secure, convenient, and affordable platform for your counseling services. Use the URL betterhelp.com/witchy to get your first week free.
This episode is brought to you by Let's Get Checked at-home health testing system. Let's Get Checked is all about personal health testing, making healthcare and health screening open and patient-led, empowering people to use technology in a simple but powerful way, and giving greater control to their personal health. They have a range of tests including STD testing across all genders, fertility tests, celiac tests, general wellness, and more. Use the code WITCHY on letsgetchecked.com at checkout for 20% off your purchase.
So, Ella, did you say that you had a Leo, Moon, Scorpio, Pluto? Is that what you said?
Leo, Moon, Square, Scorpio, Pluto, yes.
I don't know why when you were talking about it, it didn't even compute in my brain that I also have that placement. So,
really? Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I actually I went and looked it up while we were talking, and it was because it was kind of how I was saying, like, you know, kind of having a tough time getting through emotions and stuff. It was just like, yeah, you have like really intense periods of emotion and inner struggle, but then if you can get over them, it makes you strong, but you really have to do like, basically it's like, enjoy your shadow work, bitch.
Yeah, I was going to say heavy shadow work vibes. Like if you have that aspect, you have to do shadow work or go to therapy.
And
or
lots of boundary setting with not only other people in your life, but your own fucking self.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my
see
God.
that.
Yes. Yep.
I, however, have my Scorpio Pluto conjunct my Scorpio Moon. So they are conjoined twins. They're basically the same thing. And I think they're 3 degrees
That's
apart. So it could be worse. They could literally be the same degree, but that's still a really tight conjunction. So also do your shadow work, bitch.
So I have actually 2 more placements that I don't have a lot on because we were getting ready to record and I'm not an astrologer. Anyway.
Well, also just a side note, you care, so you want to know everything. Like you can't, like you have to read like so much. Whereas when I was taking notes, I was like, okay, skim, boop, bop, 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 there you go, information. And you're like, no, I'm going to study and I'm going to learn and I'm going to know everything.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that's probably the hardest part about being in a podcast where we talk about so many different huge topics is that I want to spend maybe a month with this one topic and like know it inside and out and then move to the next one. But we're like bleep blop all over the place, which is great. It gives me a lot of like, we've talked about this before, me like having a lot of useless information because I only have little bits of it. I'm like, oh yeah, what about this? So just that's a side note.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about, knowing each other and these things. Now we're just talking about ourselves. Shocker.
Yeah. Maybe at some point we can actually do those deeper dives into some of these complex issues, like revisit, be like, oh, here's part 2.
Season 4.
We're working on it. I mean, I like that we're doing these blocks, we've discussed it outside of the actual recording, but where we're doing these blocks where we can kind of focus on one thing. So we'll get there. We'll get to Jess's ideal where we can just like spend a month really diving into one thing. We got you, baby.
All the details.
That's why I love you. So I have a Gemini Jupiter square my Virgo MC, which is midheaven. I aim big in life. I like the big picture. I try, and maybe I shouldn't do this as we've learned with my human design chart, but I like to be like, okay, this is the big picture. This is where I want. This is my ultimate dream reality. And then becoming disappointed with myself for having small success or advancement. Or none at all. I mean, just depending on perspective of the situation. So like always wishing for something more. But I think this can also be good because if and when, and sometimes I do learn this balance that, and I see this within like this podcast and the book that you just released, like these little wins and like being so excited, like we can officially call ourselves published authors and that is a mega toot.
It is, yeah. It's awesome.
So there, just with this placement, there's lots of highs and lows, and I think that also correlates with like my numerology chart. My life path number is an 8, so it's like equal return for the energy that I put out into the world.
Yeah.
Got any fun insights for that?
I know that's why I said yeah, because I was like, come on, brain. What do we have to say about that? I mean, the main thing that was bouncing around in my head is that look, where's Aquarius in your chart?
I believe it's in the second or third house.
Okay.
Oh.
Because
It's in the third.
okay. I celebrate like everything, and I really am amazed by like most things, and that's something I didn't recognize about myself until like my roommate just wrote like all of her friends like love notes, and in mine she listed things that I knew about myself, that I'm like driven, and I can't remember the other ones, but then she also said like you're just amazed by everything, and you find like the little things so exciting, and I was like, oh, that is for sure my Aquarius rising. Like, I'm just amazed by like, oh my gosh, wow, look, my plant grew a leaf, as if I've never seen it before, just like so stoked. So lean into your Aquarius side and just like get real fucking stoked on everything. That's what I was thinking about. Everyone, if you need to get stoked more often, where's Aquarius in your chart? Lean into that aspect.
Oh my God. Okay.
What is the third house?
Your mind.
Oh, that makes sense for Jess. Okay, so one time I went to this gas station. Okay, granted, I was also stoned, so I want that on the record as well. But I went and I got like a donut and I put it on the counter. The lady's like, okay, 56 cents. And I was like, 56 cents? Woo, that's a deal. And like the whole gas station was just like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And I was just like stoked on my 56-cent donut. But also, that was in Texas, and I'm from Hawaii, where donuts have. I mean, the last time they were 56 cents, I probably wasn't even alive, honestly. You know, everything's expensive here. So I was like, what? 56 cents for a donut? Fuck yeah. And everyone was like, what the fuck, you weirdo? I was like,
Get excited about life.
Yeah, little wins, man. If something's cheap, cheer about it. I mean, you don't have to do it in public. I don't suggest it.
Hey, why not? I like attention.
But I like that's in your third house, because you're a very mind, like your ex said, you got to take your mind on a walk.
Oh my gosh, I was just thinking about that today.
Yeah.
Fucking synchronicities, man.
It's where your alien side comes out. Right. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Find a way to find little celebrations with your mind and communication and words and all that stuff. You know, find out what that specifically means for you. That would be my little suggestion.
It also helps boost your dopamine production to have little wins.
For sure. All right, you want to hear my last
I do.
and final placement?
Yes.
It is Gemini, Jupiter, square, North Node, and Pisces.
Gemini, Jupiter, square, North Node, and Pisces. Jupiter square, North Node. That's definitely a challenge. I mean, all squares are, but I'd love to hear your research on that.
So Jupiter placement is like about expansive qualities and the ability to improve oneself. Probably a lot of like mind work, I would think. That's what I get from my chart anyway. Conscious motivation related to the present and future, and a desire for betterment. So I'm supposed to pace myself with development so that I can stay grounded and have a realistic outlook on life. And I believe that that intellect and knowledge is the key to problem solving. So it's best not to lose myself in that bigger picture. When I react to the world with wit and smarts, I'm likely to have good fortune. I'm probably friends with people who are very intellectual, but also a little goofy.
I was gonna say that little bit just had me rolling for a second. Me and Jasmine are here making hair mustaches while Jess is talking about her intelligent friends.
You look like the Lorax.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, my hair is definitely the same color as his. But yeah, straight up was sitting here vibing like, oh yeah, you're intellectual friends. We definitely fit that. And you're like, and also goofy. And I'm like, oh right, we have hair mustaches right now.
Oh gosh. So it is very important for me to learn to not overthink so much, because that does very much limit life. To worry less and believe more. Relax a little bit on the rules and focus on mental and emotional health. which for myself would include compassion for myself, faith in what I'm doing in life, and tolerance for the rest of humanity. and
I like
to
that.
approach it all with curiosity.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that seems
And I
like
believe,
you.
yeah, I believe that I've worked through a bit of this, but growth and change and all of that, it's not linear. You're always going to come back around to other lessons, especially in these like heavier placements.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that's been popping up a lot since I've been talking about shadow work so much on my platforms, and people have been reaching out to me and like leaving comments like, how will I know when it's done? And I have to be like, well, see, it's never done. Like, even like the last big shadow work thing I was doing was learning to love my body again and love myself without conditions again. It's like, that one's going to continue coming up for my entire fucking life. And I just need to be like, I just need to know that it's going to change because my body is going to change and life changes. It's shadow work is never done. Your growth is never done. Your learning is never done. And it has highs and lows.
Mm-hmm. However, there is a little thing called mindset work.
That's true.
That I personally coach in that subject. And you can reprogram your thought processes, the way your brain works. And so in conjunction with shadow work, it can get a whole hell of a lot easier so that the next time it comes around, your backpack's a little lighter, so to say.
Right. I've found with me, it's like once I realized that, you know, when you're going through, when the shadow work first pops up, it's like, oh shit, and you might cry and struggle. But then it's like, oh, okay, but this is an opportunity to learn. Pluto's in an opportunity to learn. And then like once you learn a lesson and you like fully incorporate it into your life, you feel amazing. So it's like, okay, yeah, it's a struggle, but I know that in a couple weeks, maybe even a couple days, maybe a couple months, we'll see, I'm going to feel amazing. And it's just, that's kind of like how it goes. So just knowing that there is truth and acceptance and love and good times and illumination at the end of shadow work, it's like, all right, cool, let's do this. Let me put on my boots.
Yep. That's what I do now when I'm struggling, like mentally. I'm just like, hey, this is not going to last. Or actually, what I used to do, I did this before I really got into shadow work when I was younger, because I have like the most horrible dental anxiety. I have really sensitive teeth, even when they were young, you know? And so every time I went to the dentist, I would tell myself, this is all going to be a bad memory. This is all going to be a bad memory. This is all going to be a bad memory. And I would just like say that to myself for however long I was in the dentist chair. For some reason, I had a lot of dental work done when I was young, but it was, I don't know what the fuck. But anyway, I would just tell myself that. And then within a few hours, sure enough, I was at home and it was just a bad memory. And I was like, hey, it works. But like I think I did that when I was in labor too. I'm like, okay, this is just going to be a painful memory. Don't worry about it. You're going to get through this. But it's like one of those things that helps me is just being like, okay, realize that this is going to end at some point. It will not always hurt this bad. There's going to be relief. You can see the light at the end of the tunnel, you know. But that's another mental trick that I do with depression now is I'm just like, hey, this feeling will end. It might be today. It might be tomorrow. You know, you might struggle this week, but eventually, you know, it'll go away. Eventually you'll overcome it. I
made it this far.
Yeah.
I can finish it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're all good. Just or like the 5-minute trick where you're like, okay, I can do anything for like 5 minutes. So you're like, okay, I'm just gonna get through it for this 5 minutes. Or when I'm running with my husband, which I hate doing, I'll be like, okay, at that intersection I can stop running. Okay, at that intersection I can stop running, and it keeps me going because I'm like, at any point I can stop.
It's a perfect habit builder. 5 minutes.
Yep. You do anything for 5 minutes. You can do it.
It's true.
Do anything for 5 minutes for 90 days. Now you got yourself a habit.
Boom, bitches. I thought a habit was 21 days. Or is that breaking one?
I believe that's breaking.
Okay, so breaking is 21.
Maybe it's the reversal. I don't know. This isn't a habit breaking episode.
Yeah.
We have not done our research on habit breaking.
Those are the correct numbers, but now that you're saying that, I'm second guessing myself.
Yeah. Okay, we'll see. We'll research it on our own. You too, listeners, if you're curious, Google babies.
Go talk to the Oracle.
Google baby.
People get so mad at me when I tell them to Google something. They're like, wow, thanks for the help. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to spend 3 hours explaining something to you. Google it.
Right. Sorry, I have learned a lot of stuff from Googling it. So you can
Exactly.
try that too. A lot of shit. And yeah, you can Google stuff and find misinformation, but just spend more time Googling it and keep Googling and doing research.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Find some
big ass
books.
encyclopedia.
Yeah, it's a literal at your fingertips. Use it.
Google's dope. Shout out
Yeah.
Google.
I actually left a lot of my Facebook groups this week because so many people ask questions that they should have just Googled. And I was like, I can't even be in this environment anymore. I'm like, these are not helpful questions. This is not stuff you can't find information on. Like, y'all need to just learn to stop.
I Googled it.
Thank
Oh,
you.
you
Oracle
Googled it?
has spoken. It is the 21-90-day rule, and it's 21 days to build a new habit, 90 days to implement lasting life change.
Oh, okay. So both of those are for building new habits.
Interesante.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I like it. Thank you for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Dankeschön.
Dankeschön. Oh, my other favorite German word, Umweltverschmutzung.
Ooh, what's that?
Environmental pollution. It actually, if you literally translated it, it would be around the world has a schmutz, or like a, I don't know what the English to that Yiddish word is, but to whatever that is, like a smudge or like a dirtying.
If you don't know what schmutz is, then Yiddish is...
Google it.
Yeah, Google it. I love Yiddish, you know?
I do
Certain
too.
Yiddish words are just so perfect, like schmutz,
Yes.
you know?
Yes. Or schmear.
A little schmutz.
I love schmear.
Right.
A little schmear on your nose.
A little schmear on your schnoz.
schnoz.
We call that some schmutz.
Schmutz on your schnoz.
Okay, do we have anything else to share about squares, my darlings?
Oh, okay. I found something in my book really quick that was kind of interesting. Okay, so it said cardinal squares is basically expressed in an outward way. Fixed squares are more of an inner conflict. And then the mutable squares are kind of like a merging of both, where your inner energy is linked to an outer moving energy. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting. I found it in my book. So thought I'd share that so that you know, if you're, whatever your placements are in, you can kind of think about it that way.
I only have fixed squares. That's all I got. Internal struggles. And so does Ella. But Jess, you have some mutables. You had, I think, 2 mutable ones that you shared.
Mm-hmm.
Inner, outer, mix. No cardinal squares amongst us. That's all right.
That's
We're
strange.
We're deep, thoughtful ladies.
It's funny because that also said it can cause insecure feelings, and I don't feel like any of us really deal with that too often, honestly.
Insecure feelings?
I mean,
have you met me?
I know, my eyes wide, and I'm like, I do.
Okay, wait. Let me restate that. In an outward way, the insecurities are not as obvious because it's that cardinal.
Because we don't have the cardinal ones, which are about the outward insecurity. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. It's
That's what I meant, was not that we're not insecure or whatever, but just
it's just all on the inside.
Yeah, it's just all it's just all inner stuff.
I know. When people hear that I'm insecure, a lot of times they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, of course.
Yeah, because it's kind of funny, like, how much we're okay with being unique on the outside, that brings this air of, like, confidence, some people would say. But, like, sometimes that's solely just, like, putting on this glamour magic and being like, look at me, now I am confident, and I've embraced a part of myself that I might not have been able to do, like, in a mental capacity.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and like, I love being different and looking different, but then sometimes it's like, oh, but I'm different.
Which comes the internal conflict.
Exactly. Exactly.
But it's important to remember that there are so many people out there that absolutely love you exactly for the uniqueness that you put into the world.
Right. And you're only going to have more people love you the more you lean into yourself and your uniqueness, because the more authentic you are, the more you're in line with your own energy, and you're going to pull in other energy that is in alignment with you, and it's going to feel good and warm and loving and lasting.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
I love you long time.
I love you both long time.
I love you guys all the way. So hard. I love you so
Across
hard.
dimensions. I love you so hard.
Anytime
Across
that it's in
dimensions, across
existence.
planes, yes. All
Time and space and
incarnations
into infinity. If that's a thing.
All right. Thus concludes the circle jerk.
It never ends, actually.
It's more like an Ouroboros, like the snake eating its tail. That is our circle jerk.
Always
It never
coming
ends.
back around.
It's a circle.
Ooh, okay. All right. Yeah, so I hope this inspires people to go look up the squares in their chart. Here I'm going to throw out some recommendations for you if you want to ask me before consulting the oracle. For your charts, my suggestion would be to draft them up on astro-charts.com. It's really easy to scroll down. You can see the little squares. You can see all your aspects, but it's very easily marked to show you which ones are squares. And looking up my squares, I like to use astrologyking.com personally. Although I usually type it into Google and then I scroll until I see the Astrology King article and click on that one. Yeah, so those would be my personal suggestions for you to use, but there are many great websites. So, use your own discernment and enjoy looking up these challenges in your chart and learning more about yourself, and probably getting, read to filth, because squares tend to do that to us.
Yeah, not cool squares. Not cool.
So rude.
Maybe it is cool. I'm okay with it.
True.
Jess the contrarian.
My mom told me the other day that hurdles make strong legs. And I was like, that is so true.
If you were comfortable, nothing would change, honey.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. We love a square, and we hope you do too. All right, you guys. Thanks for listening. Make sure to check us out on Instagram, Power of Three Podcast. Send us an email if you have anything you want to chat about, ask questions about. We're here for you at powerofthree.witchpodcast@gmail.com. You can sign up for our Patreon. You can follow us and join our group on Facebook. Links to those are in our Instagram bio. Yeah. Next week we have a fucking dope guest episode. So you definitely don't want to miss that one. We will catch you next time. See you on the flip side. Adios.
Bye.
Oh, goodbye.